Matt, I want to start with you. And if you haven't met Matt, Matt is someone who has been fascinating for me to be able to work with and be able to engage in terms of the kinds of things that he and his organization does. He's the president of White 64, and in 2018, Matt successfully sold the agency to Pentagon Federal Credit Union. White 64 has seen significant growth, and Matt's been primarily focusing on organic development, the acquisition of complementary services. And as you can tell from this picture here, Matt's an avid sailor and enjoys spending free time racing dinghies and cruising on his vintage 1973 Bristol 40 yawl in Cricket. Matt, let me send it to you to kick us off and to get started in terms of what you've been experiencing and your take on what it means moving to next year.
Thanks, Maury. Thanks for including me in your panel. And I mean, it's a great topic. In looking at it, first let me say what a privilege it is to work with Heart+Mind. We share a number of different clients together and have really enjoyed the association and the work that we're able to do together. When you asked me, you know, what was it with human connections, and I really thought of three things. And being in the advertising business, I think that the number one thing, the challenge really for brands and for, frankly, the American people is this idea of trust. Number one, you know, there is just an absolute crisis in trust today. We can't believe anyone, and we certainly don't believe anyone who doesn't believe what we believe. And you know, Edelman is a great agency, and they put out this Edelman Trust Barometer. And I do think that some of the changes that have happened in 2021, it'll be interesting to see what their 2022 study comes out with. But their 21 study really talked a lot about where that for brands, trust is the new equity. That's what brands really have to establish and try and create. And they're really looking, and I think this is kind of a statement on the last administration, is looking for brands to establish some kind of opinion on social issues. And I think we saw that in a lot of the advertising that came out. Second, on the second big point for me is media fragmentation and polarization. You know, consumers today, we can curate our own content. We can get the messaging that reaffirms our beliefs. So it's like this snowball effect that just kind of builds on each other, is that we look at information as it's coming in that we want to hear. So it is because of the algorithms in our social feeds, in our news feeds, we get reinforced messaging to reaffirm our beliefs. And really what it's done, it's kind of, I like this visual of a dodgeball game. And I think that media has become this giant dodgeball game where people are now occupying the ends of the court, and you're throwing balls at each other as hard as you can, but everybody is on the extreme end. Nobody's up front. And so that really kind of builds into kind of my third and last point, which is this loss of public discourse. You hear a lot about it in politicians today, but there is no middle. It's not fashionable to be moderate, you know. And one hint of an opinion that your opinion is different than somebody else's, all of a sudden you will dismiss whatever the other person has to say. It's interesting, and I'm in a small group, a Bible study with some other guys, and there's a pastor friend of mine who suggested a book that we read, and it was not a controversial book by any means. It was a pretty straight down the middle book that we read. Anyway, one of the guys in the group found out that I got the recommendation of the book from this pastor friend who had said something positive about the LGBTQ community and their need for having Jesus too. it was a really like a non, it was a non-issue, in my opinion. Anyway, they decided because of this guy's opinion on the gay community that we weren't going to read the book. And it just goes, you know, it just goes to show, it kind of illustrates the polarization that happens because of one opinion, this positive that we could have discussed on the other side was completely dismissed. So I do think it's really this kind of vicious cycle. Because we listen to only information that we want to hear, we get curated this content that kind of makes it more extreme. Somehow I feel like our country has to find a way to get to the middle of the dodgeball court. We can't just have life from the back line. And the last thing that I'll say is we had an international advertising conference, and we had a guy that came and spoke at the Willard in October. And he was talking a little bit about politics and what was going on. And really, Maury, this is to your point about a divided country. But he talked about the real possibility of the nation dividing in two in the future. And that that led by states like Florida and Florida and Texas, that you could really see a future. He could see a future where the country is literally divided both geographically and politically. I hope that's not the case. I hope that, you know, this topic of human connections, I hope that we're able to find a way back to the middle.
Thank you so much, Matt. And please chime in on the chat to keep this dialogue going on these issues, because that's the critical play that we're facing, right? Being able to know how we can have room to learn and expand our understanding from other people.